Hey, it's Damien Baden here, your local real estate agent in Northeast Ohio. And today I wanted to talk about tips for buying a home. And these are tips that I follow when I'm buying something. And hopefully you're going to find the same value that I do, and it's going to make you a smarter buyer because that is my goal. First and foremost, before you even start thinking about buying a home, I think one of the most important things you can do as a buyer is start tracking closing prices in the neighborhoods that you're interested in. Reason you want to do that: if you don't want to overpay and don't want to lose your butt right when you start because you overpaid for a house, the best way to counteract that is to actually know what things close for in that area. So just to give you an example, if you track Bay Village, yours typically going to be about 130 a square foot up to about $185 a square foot. It's a pretty far range, but you got to also understand the neighborhoods. You also got to understand the types of homes, and you also got to understand the updates inside those homes. Obviously, a home that has all the great things is going to be probably towards the higher end of the price range. Could it be higher? Absolutely, but there would have to be some good reasons why it would be higher. If it's on the low end, it's probably going to be something that needs some updating. It's going to be something that's maybe not on the nicest of streets. Maybe it has a crappy backyard. But there's a lot of different things that can go into understanding that. The best way to figure out closing prices is you can track them on different websites where there's public knowledge. I can make it super convenient for you, and there's no obligation if you would take advantage of this, but I'll throw this out there right now for you, and I do this for a lot of my clients. But if you want to, make me aware of the area that you're interested in, I can set you up on a search that literally sends you closings as the agents enter them into MLS. So as soon as a closing takes place, within a day or two, the agent's going to update that listing. They're going to make sure that the updated closing price is in there. So you're going to see what it listed for. You're going to see what it closed for. It doesn't really matter what things are listed for. People can ask whatever they want, but the market determines the value. And when it closes, the market has determined that value of that home is worth X. So by having a sort of opportunity like understanding when closings are taking place, this is something that can be you don't have to search for it. You don't have to try for it. It's just something that'll pop in your email that a new closing took place. You can look at a portal. If you would like to do that, you can text 440-628-1321 and just, put who you are and that you're looking for closed home value. And then I'll ask you a few more questions. We'll get it taken care of. But that's one part. Another part, and right now, think about what we're going through with the pandemic in 2020. A lot of people are probably struggling right now because they live paycheck to paycheck. And unfortunately, you've got to make sure that you protect yourself. From a financial standpoint, I've even had people ask me, have you tried to reach out and stop your house payments? Have you tried to reach out and stop a car payment? But the problem is this: a lot of times, and I haven't looked into this because I have enough reserves and I've saved enough money, because that's what you should do. You should never be in a situation where you're relying on every paycheck. But you should have at least 3 to 6 months of reserves in the event that something does take place. You're not struggling to make that house payment. You have no idea that somebody jumps into buying a home and then all of a sudden something happens, and life does happen quite often to a lot of us, but all of a sudden now you lose the home because you didn't make house payments, or you didn't make payments and the late fees and all the other stuff. You just feel like you've gotten beat up and overwhelmed. Next thing you know, you foreclose on a house, and oh my God, you're going to wait 7 years to buy a home, so you're going to have to rent. So it's very important to make sure that you save money. On top of that, one of the things that I always suggest is walking the neighborhoods and, meet some people around, see what it's like, understand, what the scenery is like in the daytime, in the nighttime, maybe in the morning. It's amazing sometimes what people find out. I'll never forget that somebody told me, oh my God, I bought this house and I had no idea that there was a train that comes through at 7 a.m. in the morning. Well, I didn't know either, but I saw the train track because we crossed it every time we drove to the house. So the fact that you didn't know a train was there, and if you didn't like the train, maybe you should have looked a little bit in advance, because we can't sit there and be the experts on every little detail of every little property. Plus, if you don't speak up and say what you like or not, your agent's not going to know. Now, if it's something that's a major issue that everyone bitches and complains about, then you know what? Now's an opportunity that they might share that sort of information with everyone. But in those situations, maybe you don't want to live in an area if you don't like trains. Um, the other thing that I always say, and this is the thing that drives me nuts, so you see a lot of people fixing up their properties. Well, if you've ever heard the term lipstick on a pig, most flips are lipstick on the pig. They put all these nice kitchens in, or they maybe put in a nice bathroom, because kitchens and bathrooms sell, just like the exterior of the property attracts somebody, but the interior of the property sells somebody. The crazy part is, though, if you look at the details and you look at the work behind it, it's almost embarrassing sometimes. And a lot of times this is discovered at a home inspection, but a lot of people spend all this money to update a home, but they do it with shoddy labor or people that aren't qualified to do what they're doing. And that's when you get lipstick on the pig. Something that supposedly looks nice, or maybe, oh my God, those pictures looked amazing when you looked at them online. You get into the home, it still looks nice, but then you start looking and things are scratched up, things are beat up. You know, they cut some cheap corners, which if they just would have spent a little bit more money and done the project right, then you wouldn't be running into the issues that you're going to run into at a home inspection. And I just ran into one of these recently where the wiring and the plumbing and some of these things were just like glaring, no, 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 you should not be doing this. And guess what? Now we're going through it with the sellers, and it's unfortunate because it wasn't something that needed, you know, for not only my buyer, but for the seller to have to go through. So always be cautious when you're looking at an updated home for lipstick on the pig. Was it actually done right, or was it done wrong? Because if it was done wrong, that seller better be paying to fix it, because why are you going to, and this is the next thing I'm going to get into, but why would you buy somebody else's headache? Do not waste your time on somebody else's headache, because there's certain things that, you know, people fall in love with when they're buying a property. They're going to fall in love with maybe the neighborhood, and all they want to do is live in that neighborhood. So they're going to take whatever they can get to buy that house. The problem with that is this: you're buying maybe what I call POS, and you guys can probably think of piece of what. Why would you want a POS house? Why would you want somebody else's headache that's going to cost you money? And there's certain things that are value adds when you update a home, and there's certain things that are no value. Prime example, if you buy a house that has a leaky basement, and you know it has a leaky basement, and you're not asking the seller to fix that before close, you're buying into their headache. And guess what? Fixing a basement can cost anywhere from maybe $3,000 on the low end up to $20-some thousand to fix, and it adds zero value to that property. And is that something that you want to invest money into that's not going to make money? Now, if you're buying the house, you know, $3,000 to $20,000 or $1,000 under value, then yeah, that might not be a bad thing. But my rule of thumb when buying a home is, if I have to do extra work and take on the risk, if it's a $5,000, you know, estimated project, I better be getting it for $10,000 off, because I'm assuming the risk and I'm having to do the work. And the seller didn't do the work because they didn't want to take the time dealing with the trades. And dealing with trades can be a real pain in the butt, because most of the time they don't show up when they're supposed to. Sometimes they don't do what they're supposed to. And it's not always their fault. It might be, you know, the person that's hiring them not being that specific and being very general and not understanding what they're doing. Long story short, things go wrong. So if you are going to assume somebody's headache, you better get a really good deal for assuming the risk and the burden of putting that work into the home. But if not, don't buy somebody else's headache. Another thing that I would always say is pay attention to what's surrounding the property. So I've seen this happen plenty of times, you know, selling since 2002, but, you know, what kind of property is behind the property you're buying? Is it woods today, but it's set up to be commercial or industrial, and they're just waiting for somebody to buy it and you didn't inquire or ask? So next thing you know, you've got, you know, a repair shop with impact sockets and, you know, air guns going all day, and, you know, the loud phone ringing and smells from God know what, if it's burning or painting or something. But point is, you might have something in your backyard or your side yard that you never expected. Now, the one thing you can't control, but it's something you should try to consider and look out for and make sure you understand is if you're buying in an area that is zoned residential today, but let's say it's close to a big road, a major road that's continuing to grow and expand and more businesses are going along it. Who's to say that, part of the side streets off that road, which maybe you're on, won't become commercial? I'm sure if you drive down 82 right now, you look at a lot of residential homes that they're trying to sell as commercial property because 82 is expanding. If you look at even Ridge Road over in North Royalton, or State Road, excuse me, you'll notice that some of the houses there close to 82, they're trying to sell as commercial property. What they're trying to put in there, I have no idea, but nobody probably would have expected that that could have happened. But knowing these factors do take place, even over in like Avon, if you look at some of the old country roads over there that now have big box stores and, entrances off of, 90, those situations change those streets drastically. So just kind of keep in mind when you're buying something, if it's wooded or if it's quote unquote a protected area, understand what it is so at least you can make an educated decision and not be irritated 10 years down the road that it's not what you thought it was and now you're upset because you feel it's going to hurt your value. And sometimes it might increase your value, but until something happens, you don't know. So always keep in mind, to pay attention to that. Let me look at my notes real quick. Okay, so this is another one that happens and it kind of cracks me up, but don't overpay for a house knowingly and then think you're going to beat them up on the home inspection. Now, there is something that does happen sometimes where you pay what you think is a fair price for the house, but then you get in there and there's a ton of major concerns or safety concerns that there's no way you would have known. That's not what I'm talking about. It's the buyers that think they're going to overpay and then make it back up on the home inspection so they could avoid out all the other buyers making their offers. And then it's like, oh, I want to ask for all this ridiculous stuff that makes no sense for you to consider. Those are things that you don't want to do. It typically doesn't end well. And if you comment below, let me know, but we can talk about even what I call the 3 strikes on, offers or negotiations and where things really get screwed up. You don't want to have 3 or 4 rounds of negotiations. It's never something that ends up well, but if you'd like to know about that, let me know. And let's go on here real quick. I have one more. Oh, sorry, I can't remember all this stuff without looking, but having a 2 to 4 year plan. It's something that really doesn't make sense to buy a house having a 2 to 4 year plan in a home. Now, if you're in an area where the market was down and the real estate market is picking up, and these areas would be maybe like, areas in California and Vegas and, Florida, areas like that, you can have big spikes. But where we live in Cleveland, you don't have these huge price jumps or drops in the market. So it's a very steady, stagnant slope sometimes with our price ranges. So if you're buying a home in Cleveland and you think you're going to live there for 2 years, likelihood is you're probably going to lose money or break even by the time you pay the real estate fees and the transfer fees when you go to move. The other thing to keep in mind is when you actually have a mortgage on your home, roughly the first 9 years or 8 years is a lot of interest on that payment. So you're not buying down a ton of equity on a 30-year fixed. On a 15-year fixed, it does change, and move that needle a little quicker. But, the interest payments, or I should say the house payments, are mainly interest payments up front. So unless you get massive appreciation in a 2 to 4 year time period, you're really not going to make any money on the home. So you might as well just rent. And a lot of people don't like to hear that, but if it's my money, that's kind of what I think about is like, what are you really making? Are you paying to live here? Because yeah, you might spend money on a rental and you feel like you're wasting it. But what if you go out and buy a home, you have to maintain it, pay for all the repairs, and then you lose money because by the time you pay the real estate fees, the transfer fees, and God knows what else could go on because stuff always breaks, now you lost money too. It's a wash. So a 2 to 4 year plan is not always the best reason to buy a house. If you know you're going to be there 5 years or more, I think it makes sense. But if it's 2 years, definitely rent. If it's 2 to 4, you really got to think what I just talked about. If you do like these videos and you find value in them, please let me know. I don't want to sit and waste my time or your time doing these if you don't find value. But if you do find value, feel free to follow me and turn on the notifications so you are aware as new videos come out. I'm going to be doing them for not only buying, but new construction, because I know a lot about new construction, and also selling, which is something that is near and dear to my heart. So hopefully you found value. Like it if you do, let me know. But turn on those notifications and feel free to follow me.